Billie Jean King was recently asked the question, who is the next Billie Jean King? And we're going to take a look tonight, ladies and gentlemen. As always, this video is brought to you via the Doctrine of Fair Use, the Fair Dealing, and the Digital Millennium Act. And someone came to mind. That's right, guys. Coco Gauff, who I've been saying for a long time now that she is the future of tennis, and Billie Jean King echoed the words I've been saying for so long. She thinks the sport will be in good hands if Coco can reach number one. How long have I been saying that, ladies and gentlemen? Now, Billie Jean King has been a pioneer for the sport. She's an amazing woman. She's a legend. But she was inspired by Althea Gibson. That's right, guys. In my opinion, one of the greatest tennis players of all time. Of course, she played in a day where, a lot of things were still segregated. There was still a lot of Jim Crow laws on the books. There are still some today, but just the sport in terms of equality just wasn't what it is today. It's improving, of course, but Althea Gibson, in case you're not familiar, the first African-American to win a Grand Slam, ladies and gentlemen. That's right. 11 Grand Slam titles in total, 5 of them coming on the single side, 5 of them coming on the double side, and 1 mixed doubles title. Bob Ryland, right, former coach of Venus and Serena, said Althea Gibson would beat Serena in Venus. Navratilova had nothing on her. Listen, guys, Althea Gibson, I've watched the film, and I could tell you she was solid. She was really a solid tennis player. But, of course, she had to walk away from the sport prematurely because she wasn't getting paid. She had to earn a living. So she dived in, other sports like golf. But she didn't get the respect she deserved, right? We heard of the stories of her going into events, at the U.S. Open and not being let in, saying, look, I'm sorry, this event is for players or, coaches. Are you kidding me? It's Althea Gibson. So very sad. And she vowed for many years to just not want anything to do with tennis because of how she was treated so poorly. And I just feel Billie Jean King has been an inspiration to a lot of the ladies on tour and tennis fans all across the world for what she's done to propel the sport forward. And hearing her say she was inspired to play tennis because of Althea Gibson at the age of 8 years old, seeing her play in a tournament in California as a young lady, watching an African-American woman just dominate the crowd and just control the atmosphere with her play. Billie Jean King said, this is what I want to do. And I say it all the time, you never know when it comes together for you. You never know what moment, what instance in your life, in your career where it all clicks. And as an 8-year-old girl, just seeing Althea Gibson inspired her. And she has gone on to change the sport and the world in some retrospects. An amazing woman. And she thinks Coco can be the next to take that torch, ladies and gentlemen. I've been saying for a while now, Coco is just simply amazing. Now, Billie Jean King recently stated that she feels that Coco has what it takes. She said Coco is the one. And she said she realized she was the one at only a young age of 16 years old, how Coco has stood up for so many things outside the sport. We've seen Coco take a stand on gun violence, police brutality. We've seen Coco take a stand on education. That's right. Ron DeSantis, we all know the governor of Florida, just some of the things that he did, trying to remove African-American studies from the curriculum. That's horrible, guys. Can you imagine an elected official trying to take a demographics history and remove it from the curriculum? It's unbelievable. And just for someone being so popular in the mainstream, the face of the sport, to take a stand on these type of issues. Coco's father told her at a very, very young age, you can change the world with your racket. And watching how classy she is on and off the court, her interviews are always funny. She has a positive demeanor. Of course, Even in the battle where she's brainstorming and double faulting up a storm, she is still doing everything she can to remain classy. And I just think Coco Gauff, she's a good inspiration. She's a good role model for a lot of these young ladies and tennis players worldwide that look to her for motivation. I think she's the poster child for tennis. Just like Billie Jean King said, and I've been saying this for a while, if the sport, the WTA, wants to go to the next level, Coco's going to have to reach number one. She's going to have to. I think with the scandal with Iga Swiatek, and listen, guys, we'll talk about Iga a little bit here, but this video is about Coco. The reality is this, right? And this is my opinion. Everyone's entitled to their own opinion. I feel that with technology nowadays, especially with, doping being so huge, you have to really, and I'm one of those people that, I don't believe everything I see or hear. I've been around the block once or twice, and we all know, and I've talked about this in the past, when it comes to doping, the scientists that they're always one step ahead of the tests, right? The scientists that are involved with producing these different performance enhancing drugs to cheat the system, to help develop these athletes and just propel them to the next level. They're always one step ahead of the testing systems, right? And you have to understand how this works. There's big money behind this stuff, right? If a player is able to dominate their particular sport, they're going to receive endorsements, sponsors, millions of dollars. They're going to make hundreds of millions of dollars for their clients, for their sponsors. This is a big business. This is not something that, you can just go on the internet and just buy something and improve your performance. This is something that involves, how do I say this in just a nice way, a nice manner? This is a sophisticated operation. It's not, this is organized, and then people have to understand this stuff. And stuff like this doesn't just happen, especially when we're taking a look at the top players from both sides of the tour, the number one players. This doesn't just happen. It's not a mistake. It's not a mistake. And it's not okay. And this is my opinion, okay? Again, I think there's been some damage control to try and lessen what the reality is. And you can't hide from the reality, I do think that it's not a mistake. I don't think it's a coincidence. I think that you can tell by the play of these players and how they've been able to just dominate the top players of the world. It's just, and look, and I talked about this previously, and we're going to pivot back to Coco shortly here. I talked about this previously. When we're talking about great athletes, right? You don't just become great. You're great for a while. You can see it coming. You can see it brewing. But when, and the thing about professional sports is, and I bring this up a lot, is a professional that's elite, they can have a good game, they can have a bad game. But somewhere over the course of the season, they're going to have an average, right? They're going to have an average of what they're capable of producing. Sometimes they'll exceed that average. Sometimes they'll, have a performance where they're below that average. But they're consistent in producing what they can. When you see a player that, for the most part, has shown their consistency and what they're capable of, just double that output, exceed that output in a matter of 2 to 3 months, it's questionable. And we have to be honest with ourselves. And that's the beauty about this channel, right? Is I don't do it for likes or money or views. So that alone right there, it's going to help you get a clear perspective of what I'm trying to say, right? It's going to give you honesty. It's going to give you an insight as to what I think and feel. A lot of channels and a lot of these outlets, they're concerned about likes, views, and persona and image, and that's a conflict of interest, right? If you are going to give your fair criticism then you have to be honest. Otherwise, it's hogwash. And let's just be honest with it. A lot of these channels, they're concerned with what people are going to say and think or feel. So they're not giving you their honest truth. Guys, there's no coincidences, right? When you see someone's performance just double and excel, and they're just dominating all these players that they've played on tour with for so many years, and just dominating these players, it's just it's not likely. It's not common. It's not impossible, but when you're just watching it, and when we're talking about different performance enhancing drugs, a lot of them revolve around blood flow, right? Blood flow is everything, right? Blood carries your nutrients to all parts of the body. It's going to help in every type of recovery, right? That's how you recover, with blood flow. It's helping you repair your body with nutrients. It's helping oxygen. Blood flow, it's all about blood flow. When we talk about Simone Halep and the Reduxistat, that's about blood flow, lungs, breathing, nutrients. And TMZ it's no different. It's about blood flow. And the reality here is, I do think that mistakes happen, and I do think it's possible. But I also look at what has transpired. And personally, my opinion is, I do think there's a lot of performance enhancing drugs in professional sports nowadays, and a lot of them can pass these tests without being detected. I've talked about this several years ago, how this technology is this technology is very sophisticated. You can pass these tests, and I do feel players are passing them, and I think the results are showing. But I say it all the time, integrity is not just about what you're doing on the court. It's about what you're doing off the court. And if you're showing that you're doing certain shady things on the court, trust me, we've all played against athletes. Everyone wants to find an edge nowadays. But if you're showing you're doing the stuff on the court, trust me, you're probably doing them off the court. But nonetheless, we'll pivot back to Coco. And I've been saying this about Coco is, I do think she's a classy woman. I think she speaks her mind. She stands up for people. And she recently talked about how just the unfair criticism she received over the course of the summer motivated her to do well during this last stretch of the season, where she ended the season winning 13 out of 15 matches, just like my predictions. I think we were something like that, 14 for 16 to end the year, 14 for 17, something like that. But here's what you think. This is a superpower, right? Taking someone's negative energy, someone's hate, and using that to your advantage. Use that as fuel, right? Use that to go into the gym, and use that fuel to get better, to work harder, and use it as motivation, right? Now, Billie Jean King, she thinks that Coco is the one. She said at 16 years old, just hearing her speak out about different issues gave her just the thought of that next once-in-a-generation lifetime player that can come forward and take the torch to the next level. She does feel that it should be a woman of color, a person of color, because she feels that tennis, as it is, for the most part, we all know that the ATA is the longest professional sports organization in America, right? That's the African American Tennis Association. And African Americans have been playing tennis for so long. You take a look at the historic black colleges, and they played tennis on grass. Beautiful HBCUs. They've had tennis leagues and organizations for a very long time. But it doesn't get covered. We've had some amazing tennis players. But Billie Jean King feels that, the tour, we all know, it's, for the most part, doesn't have as many women on color. And she feels that Coco is the one to take it to the next level. She feels that it should be a person of color to speak out about some of these issues. And who better than the 20-year-old from Delray Beach, Coco Gauff? She's raised by two amazing parents. Her father, Corey, said, "You can change the world with your racket." And I just feel Coco is just such a classy person. She's an inspiration. And I agree with Billie Jean King. I think once she reaches number one, she's already backed by so many sponsors and endorsements. She's such a great role model. And she's a great player. Let's not forget, she's a great defender. She's got one of the best backhands on tour. She's got the best footwork on tour. She's the fastest player on tour. And I feel she's getting more comfortable with her new game plan. She's growing into her skin. And I feel that the double faults have reduced under the new coaching. I do feel going into the next year, they are working on adjusting the grip as well, which is not easy. And we're going to see how well she does. I do think she'll do well at the Australian Open. In fact, she's my pick to win the Australian Open. I feel that there's really no one inside the top 10 Coco's going to have to worry about for this upcoming season. Of course, Sabalenka and Iga Swiatek are probably the two that come to mind. But I think Iga's about to enter a stage of a different type of set of challenges that she's going to have to figure out. She has a new coach, which is one of the best coaches on tour. I think she'll be fine there. A lot of people are coming to her support, just, agreeing that it was a mistake. I don't necessarily know if that was a mistake, and I'm not going to play the politic game and just go off of what everyone else agrees and says.